Okay, this time for real. This time totally for real for the next half hour. All right, the text is big enough. Okay, so why is this talk important? What will happen if you just sit there, even if you were on the right track? And what is the essence of thinking gray? And why is it important for effective leaders? So none of these really feel like the start of a story, but why is this talk important? Seems like it can kind of get me somewhere. This is improv, by the way. So I guess we just kind of like see what's in here and then uh, sitting there, even if you're on the right track, maybe that can start us off with something nice too. And let's just see. Let's just find out. Let's just do this. Okay, so let's listen to these and see if any of these spark creativity within us. Let's do the same thing with these, even though these are different. Okay, 11 messages. So let's listen to these and see if we like any of them.
Why do I believe this talk is important? It is important because as far as I know, each of you has but one life to lead, and it seems to me it is better to do significant things than to just get along through life to its end. Certainly near the end, it is nice to look back at a life of accomplishments, rather than a life where you have merely survived and amused yourself. Thus, in a real sense, I am preaching the messages that 1. It is worth trying to accomplish the goals you set yourself, and 2. It is worth setting yourself high goals. From The Art of Doing Science and Engineering. Learning to learn. A problem is important partly because there is a possible attack on it, and not just because of its inherent importance. From The Art of Doing Science and Engineering. Learning to learn. This is a really big deal, because our attention is the most valuable thing we have. We experience only what we pay attention to. We remember only what we pay attention to. When we decide what to pay attention to in the moment, we are making a broader decision about how we want to spend our lives. From How to Break Up with Your Phone. The 30-day plan to take back your life. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. E. Will Rogers. From 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. The productivity habits of 7 billionaires, 13 Olympic athletes, 29 straight-A students, and 239 entrepreneurs. Being right keeps you in place. Being wrong forces you to explore. From Where Good Ideas Come From. Life will follow the path it started upon, and will neither reverse nor check its course. It will make no noise, it will not remind you of its swiftness. Silent, it will glide on. It will not prolong itself at the command of a king, or at the applause of the populace. Just as it was started on its first day, so it will run. Nowhere will it turn aside, nowhere will it delay. And what will be the result? From On the Shortness of Life.
Okay, so those are all pretty high brow kind of high idea, not much to work off in terms of like character development or setting or anything like that. But there were a few that kind of stuck out to me. Being right keeps you in place, being wrong forces you to explore kind of sounds like an interesting character concept where like the character has to make decisions and then they get literally thrown off of a pedestal if they don't make the right decision. And then um this one was pretty cool too about life will follow the path. Silent life guides on. That's kind of like the command of a king, the applause of a populace. Is kind of like the, you can imagine like leaves falling off of a tree in someone's like life, kind of like that story of the girl with the choker where she like fell in love with the boy and he was like, why don't you take off that choker for me if you really love me, and she takes it off and her head falls off. And then what we pay attention to, it can kind of be like a walk away from Omelas type story. And then a problem is partially important because of the attack on it. So I think I'm actually going to do the pedestal one. I think that's pretty interesting. So let's start here, and we can say a man was sitting on a pedestal. On this pedestal, or maybe we should we outline this, or is this kind of just we're just running? Let's just run with it. See where we end up. On this pedestal, the man stood. By choosing to participate in this game of life and death, he knows that every judgment call he makes will put him, will threaten to knock him off the throne. Which was that? No, that wasn't that one. Let's go to, yeah, this one. Let's copy this message text. That's weird. Usually it copies the, I think it did. I think it just ghosted and absorb it or whatever the hell. It's fine. Okay, so basically, let's assume that this man is standing on a pedestal, and by choosing to participate in this game of life and death, he knows that every judgment call he makes will threaten to knock him off of his throne. So let's generate an image of this being wrong forces you to explore. And let's also generate an image of, well, no, I don't think I can do that with the current technical stack that I wrote, unfortunately. So let's get an image here. See what we get. And then think about the next kind of like step that we want to ask. Okay. Very interesting. Let's copy the URL to this image. Nope, not the message link. Copy text maybe? I wonder if I can just no, I don't want to do that. Can I post an image from URL? Oh, god damn it. Okay, so that doesn't work. I can't post an image directly from URL. But I can just save it here and come back for it later, I guess. I don't know. So let's choose the next step for this story. So a man was standing on a pedestal. On this pedestal, the man stood. By choosing to participate in the life of game and death, he knows that every judgment call that he makes will threaten to knock him off of his throne. Being right keeps you in the wrong place, and being wrong forces you to explore. So let's say that he chooses one day, well, he has to be like threatened by something. So we have to do like something like one day he is threatened by, to kind of like understand a little bit more about what his motivations are. So if we go to search here, we can search to see if we can find any quotes about being threatened. and maybe something cool will come up that will be helpful. So, okay, the wolves preying on the townspeople. So we could use this. The angry man is provoked to anger. The other man rushes into wrongdoing, motivated by his action. And he senses that in the female body, this smooth body will belong to a life that's never his. I think of the three, I kind of like this idea of like the outside of the garden wall are the wolves preying on the townspeople. That sounds like a pretty interesting kind of like concept. I don't know where that takes us, but it seems like it's an interesting direction. So let's put that here. And quote that bad boy. Okay, so one day he is threatened by the sound of howling outside of his window. Is that too literal? Because like we kind of like were starting pretty metaphysical. A man standing on a pedestal in a game of life and death with judgment calls. And now we're like saying that there's literally wolves outside. I guess this is kind of like maybe one of the earlier decisions humans have had to make, and then kind of like taking these decision points and turning them into something. So we can run with it. We'll see what happens. So one day he's threatened by the sound of howling outside of his window. Let's generate an image for this too. Okay, well that's cooking. He realizes that he must make a choice. So I think one thing that I'm trying to establish here, maybe we do need an outline because the improv is good, but like I've noticed that like I think that it needs some kind of direction, or at least like characters, settings, stuff like that, right? So character, um, the man, setting, the pedestal. So we have the man, the pedestal, and then what's the conflict? Do we have any of that yet either? This is kind of like a yes and kind of situation. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go along. Um, so maybe we can think about, do we have to think about an ending before we kind of like, I guess it's like not really true to improv, right? So, okay, so every time the man makes a wrong decision, the um, pedestal he is on gets more wobbly, less sure-footed, chipped away, perhaps. So, but he has to make decisions on the spot. He cannot wait too long, or the pedestal still loses a piece of itself. If the pedestal can no longer stand, the man will fall to his demise. Thus, the story is about making good judgment in the face of stressful situations, but right for the decision does not necessarily mean correct for the world, or something like that. So every time the man makes a wrong decision, the pedestal he is on gets more wobbly, less sure-footed, chipped away. But he has to make decisions on the spot. He cannot wait too long, or the pedestal still loses a piece of itself. If the pedestal can no longer stand, the man will fall to his demise. Thus, the story is about making good judgment in the face of stressful situations. But necessarily right for the decision doesn't mean correct for the world. One day, the man has to make a decision that will cost him his life if he gets it wrong, but there is no right answer. So he must accept his fate? Question mark. Okay, so a man is sitting on a pedestal. On this pedestal, the man stood. For years, by choosing to participate in this game of life and death, he knows that every judgment call he makes will threaten to knock him from off his throne. Every day, the man. Okay, let's do this here. Every day, the man receives a letter that tells him what he must do. He has two options he must choose from. If he chooses incorrectly, the pedestal will lose a piece of itself. If the pedestal loses all of its pieces, I think I had to clarify what these are. The man will fall to his death. He only knows how many judgments he's gotten correct or incorrect over the years, but he can't see below the pedestal to see how damaged it has become by his actions. In other words, he has no idea how many more chances he has to salvage, to get wrong. Seems like a pretty Sisyphean story already, right? Like he doesn't really have he doesn't have an option. B, he's kind of like trapped in this like pretty crappy situation, obviously, where he's just trying to survive. Um, how can I just copy this URL? I guess I could just do this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll go back here. Was that from the Wolves? Yeah, it was. Okay. It's like it's trying to get the image URL, and then because it's on this Cloudflare image delivery public thing, it can't, which is really annoying because I'm gonna have to like save them to desktop and still do it manually, which isn't gonna be that bad, but all right. Let's generate art for this. Oops. Slash draw. And let's draw this too. I do have to save these now because Dolly gets rid of them in 24 hours, and I only made the other ones Cloudflare, and these are still just Dolly, which I'm now realizing that I probably shouldn't have done that, or at least need to go back and change it. So every day the man receives a letter telling him what he must do. He has two options to choose from. If he chooses incorrectly, the pedestal will lose a piece of itself. If the pedestal loses all of its pieces, the man will fall to his death. He only knows how many judgments he's gotten correct or incorrect over the years, but he can't see below the pedestal to see how damaged it is. In other words, okay, let's put like a pick here, and then pick here, pick here. So a man was standing on a pedestal. On this pedestal, the man stood. By choosing to participate in this game of life and death, he knows that every judgment call he makes. Dude, what the heck? Dude. What if I. Let's grab it. All right, it's not gonna. It's gonna do me like that. Okay, so on and on this Sisyphean torture continued. Trapped in a world where the only choice this man truly had was one between static composure and destruction is the wrong term, like, and the abyss. Wow, this took a really dark turn. This story is kind of already pretty morose. I wonder what I have in here. So I think that the plan, obviously, as you can see, I'm doing this in real time and figuring this out in real time. But like, where I'm kind of taking this direction is that, like, I wanted to be able to use the commonplace book to write more stories and write code and stuff like that eventually too. But I'm realizing that, like, I want to use search when I have a good idea, like a direction that I want to take the story, and wander when I don't have an idea of when I want to take the story, and kind of like seeing where to go. This is actually perfect. This quote rocks. This is exactly what we are looking for. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we can skip to the wolf thing. Like, this is like the kind of final decision point. I'm wondering if I need any more um, world building, because basically what I'm saying is that, okay, he makes a wrong decision. The pedestal that he's on gets chipped away, but he has to make decisions on the spot. He cannot wait too long. But actually, he can. Let's do a little bit more world building, I suppose. Standing on a pedestal, by being forced to participate, because it sounds like he doesn't really want to be here. His pedestal is sufficiently high in the sky, giving him a good vantage from a raven to see all of the participants in his choice. The man has until the sun sets, when the raven will return for his decision. Okay. Let's say that he has to make a few decisions before the final decision. So let's say that, like, on day 3, the man dot dot dot. We don't know what he did. Let's wander. I don't know exactly what book I would want to wander in anyway. Oh, am I not live anymore? Hold on. Oh no, I am. I think my thing just bugged. Okay, so who has limited control over the advertiser's message? What happened to crypto companies in the summer of 2022? And what are some examples of telescopes that can observe different parts of the spectrum? And yada 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 yada. I think these two kind of like look at like choices. Let's wander one more time, see if there's anything else that we might want. Enumerate conditions under which they should quit. Essential ingredients. This is kind of interesting because like you could kind of say that this man has like a viewpoint of like war. Oh, that's way too long. Let's speak that. Let's seek that. And let's speak that. Those are all too long. Um, okay, so I think I'm going to speak all of these, and then I actually have to get going because I have a meeting at 3, but I'll be back later to finish this story. That's the plan. But let's listen to these, and actually, let's just review the story, and then kind of like I'll think about it when I'm offline, and then when I come back later, I'll continue to work on it. So we started off with the man, a pedestal, and this man is sitting on top of a pedestal where he has to make a decision every single day. And if he makes the wrong decision, the pedestal loses a piece of itself. If the pedestal falls, the man will also fall to his demise. So the story is about making good judgment. But then he knows that there's one day that there's like, this is the climax, that he has to make a decision that will cost him his life or accept his fate. So we started off by saying a man was standing on a pedestal. On this pedestal, the man stood. By being forced to participate in this game of life and death, he knows that every judgment call he makes will threaten to knock him off of his throne. Every day, the man receives a letter from a raven that tells him what he must do. He has two options he must choose from. His pedestal is sufficiently high in the sky, giving him a good vantage point to see all the participants in his choice. The man has until the sun sets, and when the raven will return for his decision. If he chooses incorrectly, the pedestal will lose a piece of itself. If the pedestal loses all of its pieces, the man will fall to his death. He only knows how many judgments he's gotten correct or incorrect over the years, but he can't see below the pedestal to see how damaged it's become by his actions. In other words, he has no idea how many more chances he has to get wrong. On day 3, the man, and this is the thing that we were just working on and on, the Sisyphean torture continued, trapped in a world where the only choice the man truly had was one between static composure and the depth of the abyss. He couldn't see a way to the far side of this. It was little more than about survival now. It was about figuring out on which terms to face death. This is getting super morose. On one day, he is threatened by the sound of howling outside of his window. He realized that he, again, must make a choice. I don't think that this is the direction anymore. This is not correct. Oh, how do you just do a strike through? I don't know. I'll do that later. Anyway, I actually have to go because I have a meeting in a few minutes, but I'll be back later today to continue to work on this format. So if you want to check out later today, that's where I'll be. I'll be live later. So yeah, bye.